Come on in, guys, because we are live here at Adam and Emily's house.
The address is
for Outwatch, a Survivor Rewatch podcast, and it's not any ordinary episode. This is our live finale episode for Survivor Cagayan. We are here in person, meeting for the very first time. We've never seen each other in person before.
Never meet your heroes.
And we've got a special episode for you today because we are watching the finale of Survivor Cagayan and reacting to it live periodically. So, periodically.
Slightly delayed live. In real time.
Yes, in real time, almost. So yeah, this is a podcast where we watch old seasons of Survivor and react to them live on pod. And you've caught us in the season finale of Survivor Season 28, Cagayan. We've got a rip-roaring episode in store for y'all. My name is Alex. I am your guide through this experience, and I'm joined by three of my friends. You know what? I forgot the prize.
Oh, you didn't bring the prize?
I forgot the prize.
Oh, no.
It's at home. I got a llama for the winner.
I'm not wearing
a real llama or a
tie.
stuffed llama?
It's a real live llama.
Probably makes sense.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot it. Let's get to know the other members of our Outwatch crew, and I'll introduce them and give you their standing in our Fantasy Outwatch pool, because we'll come to a conclusion today. First up, in third place, leading Dara's second win tribe, is Emily. Welcome to Outwatch, Emily.
Thank you. Just really riding that second wind.
You've got...
Riding it to victory!
You've got Cass still in the game here, a number of points down, but what do you estimate Cass's chances are going into the finale here?
I think that Adam is motioning to me, and I'm unsure why. Percentage?
I'm saying 0%.
0%.
0% chance at winning this game.
Yeah. I missed the joke. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was actually really starting to analyze instead of thinking of that.
That was your first mistake.
I think that Cass has been an interesting player, but I don't think she honestly is worthy of winning Survivor at this point. I think she's made some rash decisions. Rash Cass.
That's what they call her.
That's what they call her.
That's her name. That's how I feel about my
Rash
team.
Cass. I found a thorn or something in my sock, and it's causing only a lot of pain.
Did you walk outside with your socks on?
I did.
I think that would be the that would be the reason why.
You know what? It checks out. Great. Scott, welcome to Outwatch, the leader of RNJesus squad. Welcome to Outwatch.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. You are in second place with 38 points, and the lone surviving member of your squad is Tone. Big Tone.
Woo, woo, woo. Talk llama to this.
You know, we've talked ad nauseum throughout the season about Tony Vlachos and what his chances are as a very volatile player, one who often rubs people the wrong way, but is without a doubt like the player with the most agency throughout the season. So now is his shining moment. We'll see if he can secure the bag.
Yes, sir.
And Adam, welcome to Outwatch.
Yeah, it feels so good to be here.
Adam has a commanding lead of 62.5 points. That is nearly 30 points ahead of his competitors.
24 and a half?
Telling me there's a chance.
I'm 24 and a half points of that. So.
Adam, you've still got Spencer and Wu left in the game. What do you
Yeah.
think about the chances of either of them taking home the bacon tonight?
Yeah, I feel good about both of them making it to the final. I don't feel great about either of them winning. I think Spencer might have the better shot of the two. But, you know, Wu's got that social game, so we'll see.
Everybody loves Wu.
Everyone loves Wu.
Boom, Sonic the Hedgehog style. All right, well, like I said, we are doing things a little bit differently today. Instead of recapping the entire episode and talking about it, we will be watching it and then stopping the broadcast from time to time and hopping back in here to tell you about what happened and what we think. So let's go ahead and make a cut right there and start the episode. Okay, in the words of Scott, lots of fireworks here.
Kaboom!
To start out this episode. So let's do a quick recap of what we saw so far. We come back from Tribal Council, and Tony is again making everybody know that his idol works for the next immunity. That is a lie. It's a big bluff. And to everyone's surprise, then the next morning, the Final Four's loved ones appear, get off the boat. We've got Cass's sweaty husband, Woo's husband, Tony's homie, who is there only because his wife is a responsible mom and didn't leave her baby at home, and Spencer's sister, who may be his twin sister. And, they chat. It's a very touching moment. Lots of human emotion from people. Love to see that. And then we get to the immunity challenge where Cass starts with a huge deficit. They're standing on these big poles in the ocean, have to scoop up water, dump it in a big chute, and then retrieve a key, run it up to the beach, use it to unlock some puzzle pieces, solve a puzzle. And Cass comes from the slimmest of odds to win this challenge from way, way behind and pulls it off. A stunning upset.
Mm-hmm.
And Cass is now in a power position heading into Tribal. Scott, what was going through your head as Cass was coming from behind here?
Well, the big thing was, I was thinking, surely she's not going to come back and win here. But then she just kept stacking puzzle pieces, and I'm like, holy crap. Cass is going to come back here.
Uh-huh.
So, wow, I was not expecting that. I completely forgot this challenge from when I watched it originally.
Uh-huh.
So I was watching just as long with everybody else here. I knew it was going to happen. Wow, color me surprised.
She completed the comeback. It really was a huge comeback. Like, it was one of those situations, you see this in Survivor from time to time, where someone's just so out of it and you get the, belittling Jeff comments towards someone where it's like, Cass sucks! She sucks!
All her brains melted away.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you start to count that person out, but she comes from nowhere. Also just really poor puzzle performances from the other three.
Well, there's kind of you get the feeling of you're just happy she made it off the pole at some point.
Yeah.
Right,
And then she gets to the puzzle and you're like, she's good at puzzles actually, and then she just kept going and you're just like, how? How is no one finishing this puzzle?
Yeah, she blasted through it.
Yeah.
It was kind of a hard puzzle. It was like a 3D kind of deal, and it's going to be confusing. But we already knew that Tony is terrible at puzzles.
Yeah.
Tony is hapless at puzzles.
Spencer has done pretty good, so I was getting surprised a little bit.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
Performance.
so. If we were seeing it correctly, at least there was a border on the puzzle that didn't really seem to change, and then there were half pieces. So some of them were they were supposed to go in the backside, and some were in the front to make it all fit together, right? Yeah. So I can see how it'd be really easy to get something in a spot and that be your problem, but not realize that that's your problem, So I don't know. Spencer definitely should have come away with that, but Cass definitely proved she deserved it. So.
For sure. It's kind of like if Tetris was a cube.
I was just thinking, you needed to be really good at Tetris to solve this puzzle.
4-dimensional Tetris. I guess that's 3 dimensions, actually. By
Yeah,
definition,
Tetris
that
is only
third dimension.
2-dimensional.
Right.
Nerd alert. Nerd alert.
4-dimensional Tetris would be if you can smell the pieces.
Well, we can talk about how VR is really just changing Tetris
Well,
games because
I
of the
was
lag.
actually going to say, it was really great for me to watch this because I was like, oh man, Cass, you're my last player and I don't really have a lot of hope in you, which I admitted in our introduction. And then she even got... So this was one of the things where they had to pull the bucket up by the rope, and her rope got caught.
Yeah.
And it was just okay, you aren't even going to get off of this platform. And she just untangled it and then got off the platform and just put the puzzle together in apparently 2 seconds. So that was sweet, sweet victory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She definitely looked completely dead to rights.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this loved one's visit. As far as I know, this is the only time that I can remember Survivor doing a loved one's visit this late in the game at the finale episode at Final Four. I actually kind of really like this format because you don't have the forced, okay, we're going to spend literally 20 minutes now to introduce all 7 of your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Get some sweet character moment with all of you.
Yeah.
And then do immunity or reward challenge, and then they're all going to go away. It's like we actually got to spend some time with them, and there were fewer of them, so it made more sense, and it felt like, I don't know, more earned from them too. Let's talk about the loved ones visit. Highlight moments from that whole sequence. Anybody got any?
Well, I said this when we were seeing it. Like, it was probably the most real we've seen Tony.
Yeah.
Because like, Tony was really... He was upset that his wife wasn't there, but, like, understood that he had a new daughter. Mm-hmm. So, like, it made sense why she couldn't get away, especially since he was already there. So, you know, he was, like, understanding, but you just saw this, like, real moment from Tony. Mm-hmm. And he spent so much of the game just playing like a crazy person.
Right.
You kind of forget that, like...
That he's a father.
He's a father. He's a real person with emotions. Right. And, like, you know, so that was really good to see.
Yeah, he was, like, had to get up and turn around in the middle of his interview because he was crying.
He was crying, right? Real
tears.
Yeah.
From Big Tone.
Big Tone.
Yeah, we got, like, Wu at his most charismatic, too, during that whole sequence.
Yeah.
He was just like, man, I see the end inside. I'm going to propose to my girlfriend.
Right.
It's the way that only Wu can talk about. So, okay, let's set the stage up then for this this tribal council that we're getting into. Cass is immune, and so Spencer, Tony, and Wu are all able to be voted for. Tony is trying to convince everybody else that he cannot be voted for because he can play his idol. But it does diddly. It is a powerless idol. So, yeah, what do we think is going to be the way that this pans out now? Do we think this is Tony's time to finally take the fall? Is Spencer going to be the vote? Is it going to be Wu? How do we see things going at this tribal?
I'm just interested to see how they will deal with Tony. Mm-hmm. Because as far as I can tell, everyone thinks that his idol's valid, right? Like, I don't think anyone's calling him on his bluff at this point.
I think Spencer or Cass, one of the two, were kind of like, if
they're skeptical.
True. Yeah, they seem skeptical at least. This is just like the problem with this, like, is even if you don't buy it, even if you're, as sure can be, there's always a what if,
and
then you're just throwing away a vote if it's true. Mm-hmm. So the problem with this is the beauty of this play is that it's just like, do you really, are you that confident that you're gonna, like, call his bluff? Yep. Or, like, because in this case it's Spencer and Wu who basically have to agree that we're going to call his bluff. Mm-hmm. You have to get both of them on board to call his bluff. And they're the most vulnerable people. Yep. So your question at that point is, okay, am I confident enough that I'm going to call his bluff?
Right.
Or is there enough doubt that I just vote out the other guy?
Yep.
Like, it's just, this is such a good play by Tony, and it's so obviously problematic, but, like, I think it's going to work.
Well, and that's another reason that I'm excited that Cass won, is because if Tony won, this wouldn't even be part of the game.
Right.
So
this makes a much more compelling final for sure.
Yeah.
Cass is really the only player, because she has immunity, that can feel, like, really comfortable voting towards Tony, because there's no chance of it bouncing back on her. Right. If you're Spencer or if you're Wu, like you said, there's the small chance maybe that this idol's real. Yeah. And now you send 3 votes for Tony, he blocks them all, and whoever Tony wants to vote out,
and he votes out
your host. So,
but on the flip side of that, you just think that, like, I'm as vulnerable as this other person, so I might as well try to get the biggest threat out anyway.
Yeah, like if you're Spencer, like, you're sitting there, like, you don't really have an alliance right now. You don't have anybody you really trust. You might as well go down swinging if you're going right. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to it then. Let's start the episode back up. Alrighty, we just got through the first tribal council of the finale episode, and it was a big one. Adios, Spencer. Your friend and mine voted out by a vote of 3-1, despite his best efforts. It really felt like he maybe had a chance there.
Yeah.
We'll get through. Here's a quick recap of what we just watched. After the immunity challenge, they get back to camp. Spencer sits Tony down and says, hey, Jeff did not mention that whoever wins this challenge guarantees themselves a chance at Final Tribal Council, but rather just the Final 3, which leads Spencer to believe, hey, we're at a Final 2, not a Final 3. And makes the case to Tony that the only way Tony's going to get to Final 2 is by winning the next challenge or by taking Spencer, because there's no way that either Wu or Cass takes Tony along. We get to the Tribal Council, and Cass basically confirms that theory from Spencer, saying that she would rather sit next to Wu than Tony. And for a minute, it looks like Tony might vote with Spencer and at least force a tie, but it turns out that after all is said and done, all 3 of the people, except for Spencer, do vote for Spencer, making him the next member of the jury and the most recent player voted out. And then Jeff does confirm, hey, this is a Final 2 here, not a Final 3. All the players, I think up until this moment, were operating under the assumption that it was a Final 3.
Yeah.
And that really does change the landscape here as far as plotting your path to the end. Adam, Spencer was a member of your team, maybe the MVP of your team.
Oh, for sure.
How about a quick in memoriam for Spencer and his games?
Spencer might have been the best survivor this season who just couldn't catch a break. Like, I think any other season we would have seen Spencer just running this game and not meeting much resistance, but he hit a brick wall that is Tony, and not a lot we can do about that. We've seen Tony take down a lot of players this game, and he did it again.
Yeah, you're right. Spencer, very strategically savvy, a likable guy, and I think maybe his most underrated thing that I'm noticing in this rewatch is how well he's able to articulate strategy to other people. I think when he was talking to Tony, it's a great example where he was like, okay, here's what's going on. This is why this move is best for you. In a way that it looked like Tony was receptive to. So it'll be interesting coming back from Tribal what Tony's reasoning is as to why he still voted him out instead of one of the other options.
I'm willing to bet that he still thinks Spencer is the biggest threat to him winning the whole game, and Spencer is the biggest threat in challenges, so it's better to get rid of him now and just try to win immunity next time around.
Yeah, immediate take was, I guess, ultimately Tony's decision to vote for Spencer over, like, Wu. Good or bad? Let's go around the table. What do you think?
I think it was depends on the jury.
Okay, yeah. Tash. I said Cass and Tosh together as Tash. Cass brought that up at Tribal. You're right. It does depend on if
they're bitter, not so good. Yeah. But if they're just gonna weigh your gameplay against, like, let's say Tony versus, like, well, really, in my opinion, either of them, Wu, especially like Wu, I think Tony wins.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see what kind of jury it is.
Emily, what do you think? Good move or bad?
I will tell you, I spent most of this time really confused because the last season that we watched, there were just 2 in the final.
Yeah.
So this whole, like, 3 versus 2 thing, I was like, what? And then I finally got it. I was like, okay, so I'm still formulating my thoughts.
Yes.
But, and I don't know if Tony knew this, but we as viewers knew that Cass and Wu were definitely voting for Spencer.
Right.
So if Spencer got Tony on his side, it would have been a tie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he took that into consideration. I think Adam's point about Tony worrying that Spencer was a bigger threat is probably the reason he did that.
Those are both great points.
Right.
Yeah. I think you are right that even though Spencer downplayed it, I think Spencer has a great chance to win if he makes it to the final.
Yeah, and just him having that conversation shows how good of a survivor he is. I don't think he has a lot of enemies. I think he would have been a really good contender to win. So.
Yeah, and regarding the tie too, like what would happen is those 2 people that tied would compete in a fire-making competition, and then the loser would be voted out, right? So if it's a 2-way tie between, in this case, it would be Spencer and Wu. If you're Tony, the best you can do, if you know also that Cass and Wu are voting for Spencer, the best you can do is force Spencer to do fire against Wu.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know, this isn't like a super relevant thing at this point in the game, but like, we don't really know if Tony, or if Wu or Spencer are great fire makers.
Right.
Maybe like, it is known that Wu is just a whiz at making fire, does it every morning. Nobody's going to beat him in a fire-making contest, so what's the point, you know?
Okay, yeah.
I think it's the right move for Tony. I think at this point in the game, either the jury is bitter or they're not. So you can't like be sitting there going like, well, if the bitter jury, I have a better chance against this person versus this person. Like if you're Tony in this situation, like regardless, your chances are pretty much the same. Like if it's bitter, you're not going to win. If they're not bitter, you're going to win. And if they're even just like a little bit bitter, Spencer's got him because he was a better player. He was a very strategic player, and so it's sort of like you can be like, well, I'm a little bit bitter, and Spencer was a really good choice, so like I'm gonna pick him. And I think at this kind of point, Tony's whole thing is, I would rather have agency over who is leaving the game than sit back and just let destiny do whatever. Yeah. So even if he's like, you know what, it is better if Spencer stays in the game with me right now. I get to vote Spencer out, and then I can sit there and be like, I had a hand in voting out every single person on this jury. And I think that's a better position to be in for Tony, given the game that he's played.
Yeah. And I think from just a pure black and white perspective, too, it's like who left in the game is going to be the biggest threat to win other than Tony, like Spencer.
Yeah.
Like, hands down, right? So
yeah.
I think that, that's probably the move to make.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get into the next bit of this episode, let's do a quick scores update after this round of final of Tribal Council. We've got a jump in the standings. Scott unfortunately slid down to third place with 40 points, receiving 2 points from Tony this episode, because it was a huge episode for Cass. Dara's second win is now a half point ahead of RN Jesus.
Sorry, Scott.
That's okay.
And
that's okay.
the Earlobe Tribe, though they lost Spencer, is still with a commanding lead of 65.5 points. You're up by 25 points going in here to the last half of the episode.
How many jurors do we have? Do we know?
That's a great question. So it's a final 2. And that means mathematics. Sarah was the first juror, and that was 6, 8.
So 9.
I think 8 or 9. Yeah.
It's probably not an even number.
Yeah. I think it's 9.
Okay.
TBD.
Oh.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see. Still a commanding lead, and man, I'm reminded just in this first bit of this episode how great the finale of this season
really
is
good.
To cap off just a really magnificent season in general, between Cass's big come from behind victory, between this like revelation that it's a final 2, Spencer going out with a bang. Great episode. So
you said like you have Wu, who's so charismatic and it's fun to watch, and you have Cass and Spencer, who have been fighting tooth and nail to be in this game, and then Tony doesn't have 5 people who are just with him no matter what. It's a really good final.
Yeah. Yep. And it's only getting better, so let's keep on going. Wowzers, Bowsers, what a challenge!
Wow.
We just watched the final immunity challenge of this season, Giant Maze, Turnstile Maze, and it was down to the wire, one of the closest challenges ever. Wu just ekes out Cass, secures the bag, and is guaranteed a shot to plead his case to the jury in Final 2 at Final Tribal. And we are anxiously awaiting what happens at Tribal Council. Before this challenge, Wu and Cass have a conversation where they both seem rock solid that they're going to take each other to the Final 2, which means it looks like this could be the end of our pal Tony's run here. First of all, it's reactions to this challenge. This is one of my all-time favorite challenges, I think, both in design and in the way it played out. Any takes on this challenge?
This was just a good challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the puzzle wasn't... Like, the puzzle was difficult, but it wasn't like...
It was a unique puzzle.
Yeah, like, that block puzzle was like... Yeah, it was hard, and it was, like, really weird. This was just, like... figure out how these gears go together, and like it was, but like in a really fun way.
Yeah.
And that maze is crazy.
The maze
super
was
cool.
huge.
Yeah.
They kept doing like the aerial view of it, and I
Yeah.
just kept thinking about how many hours it must have taken to put that together. But it is the final challenge, so
Gotta go big.
yep.
The gear puzzle reminded me of like a Zoombinis mini game. Did you ever play Zoombinis when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's like
I think based on the reaction, no one else has.
Yeah, I was like, if anyone, it's probably.
It's like an educational computer game.
Oh.
But it'd be like fit these gears together to turn on the.
There's like
breaker.
7 gears, and you just gotta put them on the
Yeah.
screen, and then
So
they
that's
all.
literally what they did.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing, but like
Yeah.
done in early 2000s computer technology. So
Yeah. Or like a Fallout unlock mechanic. Unlock this safe by putting these gears in the right place. Yeah. Great challenge.
I was gonna say I just played Nancy Drew games, computer games, so I kind of was like a little bit cooler.
well, and like I know like old Survivor. From what I remember, most of the final challenges like this were just like
Stand on a thing.
last as long as you can. And so this was like a really fun. Like it wasn't that it was actual like skill involved. It wasn't just like, are you the least hungry after 39
Right.
days?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was very close. It came down to the wire.
Yeah,
Seriously,
it
yeah.
really
I
It
feel
was.
like this one was less about strength than.
Yeah.
Because even when you had to run through the maze, it was a lot. I mean, I'm assuming it was more about strategy and puzzles.
Yeah. How fast can you really go when you've got to stop every like second and a half
Right.
to turn a corner or something? Yeah. It was like as close as it gets. Both of them are like cranking the wheels at the end.
Yeah.
And Woo's just happened to drop first, so super close. We have to talk about, this was something we missed at the last break. Woo was contemplating what happens when there's a tie at Final Four, and he's at confessional where he's like, what even happens when there's a tie? Do you draw rocks? The jury? Like, what did he mean by that? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
the jury votes for who goes? You had a great point about when he said fight for it, which I think is, I believe, and take as canon now.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's like working through it, and you can just tell like the producers or whoever behind the camera is like, we're like mouthing to him like, you make fire, but he doesn't realize that he's like, we fight each other for it.
The implication being that, the producer is mouthing fire, but he sees fight.
Yeah.
And he's like, we fight? I totally believe that is reality.
Yeah,
I'm
and he
believing
was
it.
so confused. I believe that was what was
But
happening.
I think Woo was kind of excited at that prospect.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I got
He was
this.
like,
I bet he'd win.
I can take Spencer.
Yeah, he totally win.
Yeah, give me Woo in a hand-to-hand combat fight against any survivor. Maybe ever.
I don't know. Cliff was pretty big.
Yeah.
Cliff is big.
I think Joe in other seasons beat him.
Joey Amazing.
Yeah.
Joey's a gentle giant.
That's
He's
true.
very docile, very loving.
True.
And he's got good hair. Anyway, anything else to talk about before we hit this final 3 tribal council? What do we think is going to happen? Do we think that Woo, because Woo has complete agency over this vote, right? He is the only person who will cast a vote. Whoever he decides to vote out goes home. Is he going to stick to his brain and what he and Cass talked about? Or will Tony be able to work one final piece of magic and somehow improbably convince him to keep him around for a final tribal?
Well, as Wu said, he would be the stupidest survivor ever to take Tony to the final.
He did say that.
I cannot imagine, even just like playing with Tony and Cass, knowing how much strategery Tony has used in the game.
Strategic.
I mean, Cass has too, but, you know.
It seems,
It's just so dependent on the jury. Like, if the jury is upset at Tony, like, you should take Tony,
that's-
right? Like,
right,
that's
right.
this is just the problem with
Gamble.
Survivor is you got to figure out.
Oh, I say this many times. It's the most beautiful thing about Survivor is that there's no like set like win case, like win condition. It is whoever the other people that played the game think wins is who wins. It's like so unique and so great, I think. Best game ever.
Can we build a board game like this where there's like an end game where the game is over, but who actually wins is determined by Like a vote of the people.
The thing with that, though, is it would just, with a board game, it would just be complete random, like, madness.
Well,
because here there's, like, real stakes in that it's $1 million.
Yeah.
But if we were playing a game and we got to the end, it's like, who wins? I would just pick who, like, would be funny.
Well, I know, I know that, like, what is it? Munchkin, the, like, start dynamic of that game is roll a die to determine who goes first. And then argue about what that means.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't say like whoever has the highest number goes first, whoever has the lowest number goes first. So it's like everyone rolls a die and then you sit there, it's like, well, who gets to go first now? Like the die means nothing. It's just your sort of point of reference. So I feel like it'd wind up something like that. It would just be silly. I don't know.
So it would be like Cards Against Humanity. You could play something really clever and...
Yeah, everyone's like, why are... That was funny.
Yeah.
I recognize my funniness.
Yeah.
I feel this way when I play Jackbox with people too, when I objectively am the funniest one.
Objectively.
Okay.
But other people aren't smart enough to recognize
Other
how
people
funny
don't
I
realize
am.
that you're objectively the funniest.
Yes,
Right.
and so I lose, but
So
it's
you are
not because I've
subjectively
played...
not the funniest.
Correct.
I also hate when people don't recognize my humor.
Scott is side-eyeing his wife. Whitney, who is here with us on the pod. Say hi, Whitney.
Hello.
Special guest. Whitney. Hi, Jen. Jen's here too.
Hi.
What an extravagant occasion. Okay,
Extravagant.
anything else before we watch this Tribal Council?
No.
Let's get it. Oh my goodness.
Hot wow.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
What?
Emily, what just happened?
Well, Woo became the stupidest Survivor player
The stupidest.
because he voted out Cass instead of Tony.
What a fool!
Boom, Sonic the Hedgehog style.
Yeah.
Woo considered it, and what we just watched was the final 3 Tribal Council in which Woo inexplainably votes out Cass, taking Tony to the final 2 with him. It was the appeal to his loyalty and to his honor that really sunk in and made him realize, hey, I've been with Tony since day one. Can't backstab my number 1 hombre. Because if my whole plea is loyalty and then I just throw that all out the window at Final 3, what do I have to stand on? And so the final 2 for Survivor Cagayan are Tony and Woo. Adam, did you see that coming at all?
Not at all. I did not see it coming at all. Like, that was the most unexpected thing ever. Like, I got nothing. That was crazy.
Because of course I haven't watched this season since it aired originally, but love the way that they editing wise set this up to be just so satisfying, but in a way that it's wow, I can't believe you did that. You get the confessional at the beginning of the episode where it's man, for me to take Tony to the end would make me the stupidest survivor ever.
Right.
Just beautiful foreshadowing.
Yep.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Well, and then Woo gets immunity. He talks to Tony and he talks to Cass. And Tony's appealing to him, and then they do a confessional with Tony, and Tony's like, yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
If I were him, I would take Cass. And he freaking took Tony. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You've got to, according to Woo and to Cass and to Tony, on paper, Tony has a much better shot of beating Woo at the end. Do we think that there's any part of this decision that was done from a place of Woo thinking, maybe I have a better chance at beating Tony than Cass? Or is this a strictly, loyalty-based, honor-based decision?
I honestly think it's honor.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that just from what we've seen from Woo, as I said during one of the breaks from the podcast, Woo is too pure for us in this game. I don't think that he's just not one who's going to lie and cheat his way to the end. He's very, very loyal to the people around him. I think that's the only explanation for this because, Cass has pissed off a lot of people and so has Tony.
Yeah.
But I just still don't see how Cass, because she's just been more reckless in a way that hasn't really looked as strategic.
Yeah.
Even though Tony, I don't think has been super strategic. I think he's also been reckless. I still feel like he looks like he's been guiding this game more than Cass.
Yeah.
So I just, and I'm sure that Wu sees that because he's been there the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony's more baseline, I think, likable than Cass. I think Cass has gotten in spats with people just on, like, personal levels.
Right,
you know,
right.
Where Tony hasn't really. It's all kind of been, like, game-based.
Except for the llama thing, but yeah.
Except for the
I guess I just wonder if he has genuinely looked at it as, if the jury is going to ask who played the better game of Survivor, I think Cass and Tony both have. So if the question is who's played the better game, Wu loses. But in terms of, like, who is the jury most angry at, Tony kind of wins that one. So, like, I think he might genuinely have a better shot against Tony. Like, I don't know. I don't think that he made that decision strategically. Like, this is the best play for me, and this is why. I think he did it out of loyalty. But I think when it comes down to it, like, it may not be the worst decision he could make.
Trying to really sugarcoat it.
I just want Wu to win so badly.
He's such a cool guy.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I love him.
I just want him to, like, they're going to ask him questions from the jury, and he's going to stand up and do karate for people. That's it.
Do backflips.
Yeah, like,
So, Wu, tell me about how you drove the agency of this game. Six back down.
Oh yeah.
Something to consider.
great backflip. Real clean.
Something to consider.
So Cass is the casualty at this juncture. Emily, you lose your last surviving member of Dara's second win.
We did our best.
We did our best.
Any words you want to say for Cass and her Cass and her game as she goes down here at Final 3?
Just R.I.P. Dara, you know? She tried so hard. She tried hard in the first season that we watched. She tried hard in the seventh season that we watched. I think Cass... Here's what's interesting. In one of the scenes, when Cass was talking to her husband, she was kind of laying out the argument that she would give to the jury, and I thought it was pretty compelling, and I would have been really interested to see how the jury would have taken that. Especially, like, depending on who she was against in that final two. But her whole thing was... and she said it way better than I'm going to because she's an attorney, but she was like, you know, I came out here and I played like a man. If I were a man, I would have been seen as strategic. Because I'm a woman, I was seen as a bitch. Would you all rather have me be a mom, or would you rather have me be like a powerful Survivor player, appealing to the women of the group? That would have been interesting. I feel like that would have been a really compelling argument against Tony, who's also done some reckless / strategic moves in the game.
Yeah, I think that's the only problem with that argument is we have to the jury has to see her as actually being strategic.
Yeah,
which I think it's really easy to see her as, like, a couple of her moves were definitely strategic, but I think it's also really easy to see how a couple of her moves really weren't. Or, I mean, they were strategic in that she was trying to do some strategy, but, like, they didn't pan out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that in the context of, like, if she were against Tony.
Yeah.
Who I feel was also reckless, but at the same time, I don't know how the other people in the game saw that. Because for the viewers, it was like, wow, you're an idiot. But for the people in the game, I think they honestly just believed him.
Yeah, I think what I mean is the issue with that going up against Tony is Tony's recklessness was effective. And Cass's recklessness was less effective. And so it would have been really interesting to see how the jury took that, just because of those things. Like, I think Cass was an extremely strategic player. Yeah. Like, she was really smart throughout this entire game, and it really is, like... Yeah. Like, I mean, like, our final four, like, any of those people, like, you put any of them in front of the jury, and they have a valid argument for being there, for sure. Yeah. You know? And definitely, like, Beauty was the worst tribe the whole time, so, like, none of them deserved to be there, so that's fine.
Oh yeah, it's a great idea there, definitely. Vote me out, it's fine. I think one thing that Tony really has going for him too, as far as his image, is I think in Survivor, once you get and play idols, there's some just like association there with like you are a conniving strategic player, right? Yeah. And so Tony's ability to find idols, even if he has not really played them well. You just like see, oh, he's getting idols. He's a strategic player, and now you start to categorize the other things that he does in the category of strategy.
He has that
Right.
leverage.
Yeah, because there's an effectiveness to what he's done.
Yeah.
Or
Or just
it's not so much that like what he's doing is strategic. It's that what he's doing is effective and therefore strategic.
Also, we forget that when he played his idol, it did absolutely nothing.
right.
Right.
None of his idols.
But he played it. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
saying.
what I'm saying. Even if it's not even a matter. No, I'm just getting too deep in this Survivor.
No.
But it's not even a matter of him being effective. It's the fact that he had the leverage. He could say,
Right.
he has the position of saying, well, I have an idol, and then stepping back and thinking about it. Whereas everyone else is just like, well, crap.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like, we have to play right now.
Yeah.
That put him in a
for
really
sure,
good
for
position
sure.
throughout the whole time because he got like 15,000 idols.
So it completely changes the position that he's playing from for sure, and therefore the position that people see him from. So it would have been really interesting to see how the jury saw that argument for sure.
And to validate what Cass said too, this is a thing I think in Survivor discourse, which is a thing, believe it or not, that is
We
like,
have a podcast on it. We
we
believe
do.
it.
We do.
that is like brought up quite a bit is like whether you call it like sexism or just like the way that different people are viewed inherently, that there is something different about in the history of Survivor the way that strategic women players are viewed versus like strategic male players, where there's something a lot more dangerous, threatening about and inherently unlikable about. I think in a recent season, in David vs. Goliath, a player named Angelina played a game that was very cutthroat, very strategic. Do I want to spoil this?
Spoiler alert.
We're not doing it for a very long time, and we will forget by then, so it's fine.
But it's a great season. We might, anyway, makes it to the end and doesn't get any votes because she's viewed as just like inherently unlikable. Whereas she played like a Tony-esque game, you know.
Yeah.
But because she was, pretty brash, she didn't get any votes. And she, even in like Survivor podcasts that she's appeared in since then, has said things like, I think I would have won if I was a man,
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to argue with.
If anyone has ever written or read a thesis or dissertation about this topic, I'd be interested.
Gender and Survivor.
Please DM us.
Yeah. Maybe we should write it.
I mean, I'm sure there are papers that are about like the way that women like present aggressiveness as compared to men.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about in
Survivor.
Yeah, but I'm
Survivor.
sure there's some sort of game theory about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cass is. I was thinking about this week. I forget who it was. Someone tweeted something about it, but like one of I think the purest Survivor underdogs to really like make it this far and have such a compelling character. There's a handful of people that you would consider underdogs based on like their physique or their personality or the way they look or whatever. Usually there's like one or two per Survivor season, but you look at them and you're like, oh, they're going to be one of the first ones out. And most of the time they are. Cass makes it all the way to Final 3. Is super fun to watch.
Yeah.
One of my like favorite characters from recent Survivor. And yeah, she does it as like a middle-aged attorney without much like physical acumen. Yeah. Survivor is better for Cass McQueen.
Who has more immunity idols than Tony?
Yeah.
So,
one
like-
more immunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, the fact that 3 brain tribe people made it to the final 6, 2 of them to the final 4, and 1 of them to the final 3.
Yeah.
Like in any other season, one of those people making it to the final. Like those 3 players are so good to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so low key because they're like hidden behind Tony as this other player. Like any one of them you could bring back for another season. I would be so excited to watch.
Good news, all 3 of them come back.
Oh, for real?
Yay.
Good.
Yeah.
Spencer needs his shot.
Rest in power, Cass. Great season. Let's do a quick update on our scores before we head into Final Tribal. Guess what, guys? We've got a 2-way tie for second place now.
Whoa.
It is a dead heat
I wonder who it is.
between Emily and Scott's tribes. Scott, you got a half a point because Tony survived. Emily got nothing from Cass, so you're
Yes.
both at 40.5. And Adam, your lead has swelled to
Gross.
28 points. So it's looking good for you. I think it's mathematically impossible to lose.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for you to lose. The problem with this, guys, is I have so much I have the previous season's Survivor winner, fantasy winner. I'm gonna have this season's Survivor winner trophy. If I keep this up, I'm gonna run out of space for all this winning I'm doing.
Did you have?
Start finding space for that.
Did you have
llama.
Sandra on your team?
I think I did.
I can look.
Yeah, because I won in the final.
That's right.
Yeah, last season of our podcast, it came down to the final.
Yeah.
I had to get at least like over half of the votes, and I got like most or something like that.
Yeah, last season going into the final tribal, Emily was up 4 points.
Right.
On Adam.
Stole it from me.
And then Adam got 6 of the 7 final tribal votes.
Yeah.
12 big points and pulled it out.
I got a super majority of final tribal votes.
That's right.
Yeah. So if Woo wins, I'll have the winner 2 seasons in a row.
Correct. Okay,
and early in the season, I believe Emily chose Cass and I chose Spencer as our winners. So we're clearly not good at this. We just got real lucky.
I honestly...
You picked the final 4.
They were far, yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I picked Cass at the beginning. I was like, yeah, she could totally win. And then about in the middle of the season, I was like, oh, that was a dumb move. But she really lasted a long time. She did great.
She did great.
Good work, Cass.
All right, well, let's get into this final tribal council. Okay, we just watched the jury phase of Final Tribal, which started admittedly fairly slow, but then got into a huge peak at the end between Trish's impassioned grilling of Tony and then Spencer's big statement towards the whole jury. It was honestly, in my opinion, not a great Final Tribal performance from either Tony or Woo. I feel like both of them were given some real, like, softball chances to say, like, hey, I'm telling you what I want you to tell me. Just say it and I'll vote for you. And they didn't do it. So coming into this vote, let's just give our quick our guesses of how things are going to go. And then we'll watch how it turns out, and then we'll go back and recap Final Tribal and the vote and our thoughts of the season at large. Emily.
Yeah, when the jury first started asking questions, I really thought they were all on Woo's side.
Yeah.
Because everyone was so bitter with Tony. But by the end of it, when things got more impassioned and when Spencer gave his appeal to the jury, I think Tony has a shot of winning.
Close vote, or is it going to be a runaway?
I think it could be a close vote because I think there are still people who are really mad at Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they could, like, objectively think he's a better player, I think they're still too personally bitter.
Adam?
I think it'll be a close vote, but I think Woo is going to pull it out. I think Trish's last stand was the most powerful. Like, Spencer,
awesome.
Spencer definitely had a good rant at the jury.
Yep.
And a completely valid one. But I think Trish's was way more powerful.
Yeah. All right, well, let's see the votes. Hoo-wee! That's it, folks!
Wow.
That's it! By a vote of 8 votes to 1, Tony Vlachos, the winner of Survivor Cagayan.
Yeah.
Who saw that coming?
Oh, Emily did.
Emily did.
It was me.
I just think back to from the very beginning of the seasons when we talked about Tony on the podcast, from y'all who have never seen him played before, talking about how this is a wild dude. He plays so erratically, there's like no chance that he's going to come through. And he is often described as a unicorn in Survivor, in that it takes a perfect storm for a player like him that is so chaotic, so over the top, so overtly strategic to actually win. Yeah. And this was the perfect storm for him. One of the best seasons of all time, and in no short part because of Tony's play and the level of entertainment he brings. And deserving winner by my estimation. Made for a great season. Scott, you got the winner by the luck of the draw.
Yeah. Thanks, random number generator.
RNGesus.
Just thinking through the entirety of Tony's game, let us each share our favorite memory of this season from Team TV himself.
Team TV.
That's his Twitter handle.
Yeah. Amazing.
Works in two ways, because it's Tony Vlachos and also he is fun TV. Scott, do you have a favorite Tony Vlachos moment from this season?
Well, there are so many.
Where did it
The low-hanging fruit is the llama.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
a good one.
I'm gonna go ahead and take that since I was given the winner here. Yeah, I still have it saved to my phone. I still watch it entirely too much. Hilarious moment, the llama talk, excuse me.
Llama talk.
My impersonation of it was terrible, but it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
So that is my pick.
Love the llama.
Love the
Emily?
llama.
I don't know if you have sound effects today, but the oh.
That's real early on.
When he found his idol, yeah. He's in the water, he's just like, yeah, good stuff. Things Adam and I still say.
I definitely still say that, yeah, to each other.
Yeah.
I love how our Survivor memes have crept into our life. It's
Yeah,
really
I say
satisfying.
cool
Yeah.
all the time.
I at work the other day, sometime this week, I did the yeah, something to consider. Never mind.
Check out Outwatch.
Adam, favorite Tony moment?
Oh, I just love his hidey holes. Like,
Yeah.
The Spy Shack.
the Spy Shack is my favorite thing.
I was hoping you'd say, I'm not a cop.
I'm not a cop. That's a really
You
good one.
say that all the time.
I do say that all the time now. Hey, you want to know something? I'm not a cop. Hey, you want to know a secret? I am a cop.
I am.
And you get all in my face. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
It's tough to beat the llama stuff, man.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Really, though.
Shout out to his spontaneous, unasked for narration at challenges and at tribal councils. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, this is definitely not fun. Nobody wants to be out here right now. Thanks, Tony. Even at the final 4 tribal, when Jeff's about to read the votes and Tony's like, Jeff, I have something to say about his idol. It's he just takes up the role of the narrator.
I would like to read what it says on the back of this idol.
No, Tony, stay in your lane. I think as far as his gameplay goes, we talked a lot about how he is always swinging for the fences, and how sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. What I think his 2 things that made his win possible were his ability to find idols, huge, kept him in the game, even if he didn't really play them correctly. The threat of him having idols makes it so much harder to be voted out, even if you don't play it. Now it's so much harder to send votes your way because of the threat of it bouncing back on you. And I think the way that he was able to wrangle people together, and you saw it with Wu in this last episode, pitch things to people in such a way that they are convinced that it is the best thing for them. Whether it is or not, I think kept people on board with him for a lot longer than maybe it was smart for them to be. So, underrated social game, even though he did piss a lot of people off. It also kind of says something that he had that many people that were close enough to him to be pissed off by him.
Right.
Because he was tight with them. So, Tony wins 8 votes to 1. The 1 vote is from Tasha that is sent towards Wu. Let's talk about Final Tribal, because we didn't get to talk about that very much. Some of the high points, I would say, are Jeremiah's moment in the spotlight.
Oh, man.
And Trish and Spencer's were some of the best moments. Anybody care to share some of the parts that really stuck with you from Final Tribal? Any of the particular jurors' talks?
I think Jeffra had a really good moment.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of dogged on her throughout the entire season because she's made some dumb moves, like going up to Jeremiah and saying, "I'm not I'm not going to team up with you. Like, it was such a stupid move, but she walked in front of them and was just like, I need you to admit to who you are and how you played this game, and didn't let him kind of roll over her the way he had been playing the game the whole time.
Yeah.
I think that was what was interesting about this is Tony the entire game has had to fast talk his way through everything.
Yeah.
And this one, everyone asked him very simple and straightforward questions. And when he tried to fast talk, he's like, no.
Yeah.
This is a simple question. I need you to answer it in those terms.
And he had a really hard time with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, which is why this final was so bad for the actual contestants in it.
Yeah.
But made for
Great
a
for the
great
jury.
Yeah.
Great for the jury, yeah. I wonder, looking back on this too, how much, and the way it's presented to us, right, is that it's shaky for Tony, and then Spencer at the end gives this big talk where he's basically saying, like, listen, Tony may have upset a lot of us, may have broken what we would consider to be like moral boundaries, but he played the best game, and he should win because of that. And you're kind of led to believe that is like carries a lot of weight based on the way the votes go. I wonder how much of this was that was like a real factor, and how much was a sort of thing where, you know, the jury intended to vote for Tony, but they also just wanted to have their like cathartic moment with him to tell him off, and then still vote for him.
Right.
You know
That's
what
why
I mean?
I feel like, especially with Jeffra, when she was saying, you know, just own up to the game that you played.
Yeah.
At that point, the game is over, and he needed to say, like, yes, I backstabbed some people, but that's how this game works, instead of kind of dancing around it. Like, we were past that point, and he just needed to own it just so people could vent and then be able to say, like, yeah, you played this game off.
Yeah.
It's like the rat versus snake argument.
Yes, Snakes and Rats, Sue Hawk.
Yeah.
Survivor
Totally.
Cool.
Season 1. Spot on. We've talked about Snakes and Rats before.
I think we-
Cemented Survivor is like a great show. Long story short, she just comes up and talks about how there's snakes and rats in the game. You two are snakes and rats. You both suck, but the snake eats the rat.
It's a good analogy.
It's great.
Yeah,
analogy.
I mean, it works here, I guess.
Yep.
Isn't season 1 one of the questions about a hyena coming into camp and eating the food and then licking his ass?
What?
Or is that Africa?
I don't remember.
Anyway. I remember being very young and this
I don't think that's in
question,
there at all.
this question coming forward.
I mean, it's more likely that it's in Africa because it's a hyena
Yeah.
than Borneo.
Context.
Than
Probably
Borneo.
not hyenas in Borneo.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah. I know nothing about the wildlife
Couldn't tell ya.
situation in Borneo.
I was very young and impressionable. It's like the one thing that stuck with me of Survivor over the years.
Got to talk about Trish's thing too. This was a big, powerful moment. I had like borderline chills during this because it was so like powerfully presented. You know, Trish is talking and makes an incredibly great point that like, Tony, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. I ran damage control the whole game. You were making people mad, and I was putting out your fires. And then and we were close. We were friends. We had legitimate human connection, and you backstabbed me and like swore on your father's grave. And then she asks in this awesome pointed way, is like, was it worth it to win $1 million to betray your father like that? And Tony tries to fast talk out of it, like you said, and she's like, no, answer the question. He just goes, yes. And it's just like, ooh, good stuff right there. Wow, what a good picture of us.
Yeah,
A
well.
photo from Adam's wedding just popped up on the screen.
It's going to scroll through a couple
You
wedding
took some pictures of
Looks like there's something in my teeth.
It's gonna be cute wedding pictures, and then he found some pictures of me in middle school and put them.
There's one
Excited
blunder
for
your
when that
picture of
pops up.
Emily.
For context, audience, we are at Adam and Emily's house.
Yes.
The TV has gotten bored. It's doing a slideshow of pictures, and I'm about to be embarrassed because that was on my 8th grade pictures. Anyway.
That's a great photo.
Such a great day.
Anything else from Trish's thing in particular that we want to touch on? I found that to be the highlight of that.
I just thought it was really cool because I don't remember what episode it was, but we made a point of saying, you know, if Trish gets to the end of this game, her argument is that she played the game very strategically because she was kind of controlling it for Tony, and she totally recognized that and called him out on it, which I thought was awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I think just given what we've seen, Trish would have been amazing in front of the jury in the final. Like, we definitely had that conversation of, like, do we think Trish can convey her... Do we think Trish can convey her contribution to this game well? And we kind of were like, I don't think she can. I don't think she realizes what she did. And she clearly knew so much more than we gave her credit for, which, like, makes her such a better player.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of it during the actual run of the season.
Right.
But she did convey it very well there at Final Tribal.
It's definitely, like, it makes you question... like editing, like obviously you need to edit down hours and hours and hours of footage to a cohesive story.
Yeah.
You kind of wonder how could you have edited Trish to look more like she was in control than, she was, which would have made like the backstab more devastating even, but you can't know that that's going to happen like, that far in advance. So like, yeah, it definitely makes the whole like storytelling aspect of Survivor really fascinating.
It's so complex to think about, is like balancing giving at every individual episode the person who's voted out like a compelling episode to be voted out on.
We're all we all keep looking at the TV waiting for it.
Tension is huge.
It keeps going. Every time it's not the picture.
Oh, Brian.
Yeah,
Brian's dozing.
He's close.
But to balance giving a compelling boot episode to the person who's getting voted out, to tell the major overall story of the winner in the season, and then like to get everything else in too. It's got to be so hard into 42 minutes of television each week.
Well, I know they record a lot, like some seasons in advance. Like, are there any that are recorded? Like, I mean, they're only halfway through the season and they're actually putting out episodes.
No.
They're all like. They know the whole like story, overarching plot. Yeah. It's definitely that is definitely a very interesting part of Survivor. Is the way that they shape people and your perspective of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Jeremiah's jury moment too, because it was just so
what did
Jeremiah.
He ask? What were his questions?
Okay, so he goes, Tony, where I come from. You swore on your wife and daughter a lot. Where I come from, that's a big no-no. You're a big bleep if you do that. I've got to know, do you really have a wife and daughter? And Tony's like, yup.
Sure do.
And he was like, wow. Wild stuff.
And
anyway,
it didn't affect his vote.
Yeah. Yes.
So bad.
Is that cardigan from American Eagle?
Heck yes it is. All of that sponsored by Aeropostale.
Yes.
Aeropostale.
Aeropostale.
There's another one. Didn't you take it?
No.
Oh, thank God.
I have another picture. It didn't make it out.
All right, now I can breathe.
You've been through
But anyway.
it. So yeah, he's like, yeah, it would be a crazy thing for you to do, to say that you do have a wife and kid, but really you don't. Yeah. So do you have a wife and kid? He's like, yeah. He's like, wow, that's disappointing. Woo. Did you actually want to win this game? Yeah. And he was like, yeah. He's like, all right, that's all. It's like, what? He's the biggest.
I wonder,
God.
and the thing that like, he didn't vote, he voted for Tony.
Yeah.
So like, is that Spencer influencing his decision? Or is Jeremiah was he just like venting?
I don't know,
like,
man.
what was it? Like, it made no sense.
I don't think there's any fruit to be gained to try and figure out how Jeremiah thinks. I think that's a lost.
It's one of those things that probably sounded way better in his head than when it actually came out.
He's so much better looking without his facial hair too. Like,
Oh, by the way, I'm a model.
yeah, he's a model.
Sweet man.
He doesn't need to be smart.
All right, so that's about it on Survivor Cagayan. Anything from this season? We didn't really talk about Woo's game in Memoriam. Woo finishes second place. Anything from his game that we really need to reflect on?
I would say, I was thinking about this, the thing that he brought up 2 times in this last episode between recording periods for us was his taekwondo principles, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which were all focused on integrity, loyalty. And so I was like, oh, that makes sense. I feel, because I was like, he's just so loyal. Like, I can tell that's very genuine in him, and that makes sense why he is that way. But then when Spencer was saying, you're acting like a dog, you're just following Tony around, you're doing what he wants, and you haven't played this game at all. And so I guess I feel that tension for Wu, but it's kind of a thing where it's like, but why, like, you are a very genuinely loyal person, but why did you have to put your loyalty in Tony? And why did that have to affect your entire game?
And that's really kind of interesting. That was such an interesting thing because it wasn't until he brought Tony into the final that we really see what he did is problematic. Like, you need to get to the end somehow, some way.
Yep.
And attaching your cart to a horse that is gonna get you there, that's a completely valid way of getting there. That's totally fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially if you own that game of like, you know what? Tony was making moves. I saw no reason to piss anybody off. I went along with it. Yeah. I think that's a completely valid thing to say as long as you're aware of it. But then when he was in the driver's seat, he took that horse to the final instead of saying, I've been dragging a donkey the whole time.
Yeah.
Like,
So many metaphors at once.
So many metaphors.
Yeah. I feel like there's no like moral high ground in Survivor.
Right.
Like, it is what it is. Like, we're all gonna lie to each other. I don't know why they act angry when it happens to them.
Yeah.
So the biggest sin for me with Wu is you not taking a shot when you have it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
big thing that will stick out.
He had his moment to make a big move.
And I honestly do believe that was $1 million mistake. I think he would have won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can play a loyal game and a good game, but you're right. Like, when the moment is there, you've got to take it. And I do believe, we're not going to watch the reunion show, but I believe, if I remember correctly, Jeff does do the thing where he's like, all right, so, jury, if Wu and Cass are in the end, who votes for Wu? And, like, all of them raise their hand. So, yeah. Gutting moment if you're Wu.
Sucks for him.
Yeah.
Couldn't have happened to like a nicer guy.
He is just genuinely
Right.
Seems like a very, very, very nice, cool guy. Cool hang.
He just seemed like he would have been so much fun to play the game with, too. Like, Spencer got so upset with him for, like, stealing the clue and all that stuff, but, like, outside of the game, like, outside of thinking, like, I'm going home unless I have this, like, that was such a fun gameplay moment,
Great episode. Okay, well, you know what time it is, everyone. It's time for our final Fantasy Survivor score check. Big points go to final Tribal Council votes. Voites. You get 2 points for every vote received at Final Tribal. And so that means Tony, receiving 8 votes, got a total of 16 points for Scott's squad. So let's run down the final tallies. In third place, with 40.5 points, is Dara's Second Wind Tribe. It was a good run for Dara's Second Wind, highlighted by Cass and Trish, but fell short nonetheless. In second place, with a final score of 56.5 points, is RN Jesus.
Yeah.
Second place.
We didn't get last.
Pulled a big 16 from Tony there, and Scott, you've got to be proud of your squad. After the 9th episode, you had only Tony left on your team for the rest of the series.
We just so happened to have
place.
the golden goose on our team.
Yeah, the golden goose.
Thanks, random number generator.
And then walking away with the championship for the second consecutive season, back to back, just like the Golden State Warriors, but not this year because the Raptors won, with 70.5 points, is the Earlobe Tribe.
What a lame name.
It is a lame name.
Whoa.
I like the name. It's a good name.
Thank you.
It's a good name.
This is the best name. It's the only reason we won.
It was a 14-point margin, the largest in Outwatch history.
Out of the 2 margins we've had.
You are a Hall of Fame fantasy survivor player right now.
Adam, do you have any words about how you pulled out this victory, even despite the huge total of points from Tony in the final round?
You know, I got lucky that my picks made it far into the game. That's pretty much the entirety of why I won. Had a couple of good back-to-back episodes where Spencer named the episode, won all the rewards, got a couple idols, and that really propelled me into victory. And you know, getting someone in the final is always nice, but it's really just getting people far into the game. That's the only reason.
You had 3 of the final 6 between Spencer, Wu, and Tasha, which is a good place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Tasha won a ton of immunities.
Yes, Tasha. I thought Tasha was on your team.
I wish you were on my team.
Might be a different story. Spencer got some immunities, got some idols, and Wu made it all the way to the final 2, which is a good way to earn some points too. Adam will be receiving a plush llama, which I meant to bring but have left in my apartment. So it will come to you at some point.
So all future episodes of Outwatch, I'll be wearing a tie-dye tank top and holding a plush llama for good luck.
Naturally.
This is actually the only episode of the season where I'm not wearing the tank top, isn't it?
Yep.
Did you really wear it every
You
time you
wear it every
recorded?
single
Every time.
Awesome. And with that, that'll do it for season 2 of Outwatch. Guys, can you believe we've gone through 2 whole seasons of
2
this?
seasons.
So much fun.
So much more invested in Survivor than I've ever been.
Yeah, I
Yes.
never thought this would come back around in my life. Here I am.
Here we are.
When do we start season 3? Next week. Let's go.
Next week. We'll get right at it.
Yeah.
You can expect a little break from us if you're a subscriber. Thank you for listening, by the way. We wouldn't do this without you. If you're even out there, it's TBD if there is anyone listening. If you are, wow, we're so thankful for you. This is just a lot of fun for us. I know that I personally love rewatching these old seasons, and it would be so much less fun if I didn't have anyone to talk through it with. And it's so much fun to get perspectives of my friends, especially first-time Survivor viewers. It brings me back to my first time, and seeing your reactions when Wu takes Tony to the end, seeing the reaction when Tony talks llama, it's worth it, man. So much fun. Our next Survivor season that we've got on the docket is Survivor Season 6, The Amazon. This is ranked, according to Rob Has a Podcast, the 7th best season all time. This is another early season that features all first-time players. While I'll say going into it, strategically maybe not the strongest, some of the best characters I think that Survivor has ever had. It's a really fun, entertaining season, and has a lot of moments that even if you don't watch Survivor, you'll remember people talking about similarly to like in Pearl Islands. So that's our next Survivor series on the docket. We may have a little mini-series in store for you before then. Just follow the feed and you'll see what's going on there soon. Any closing remarks from the 3 of you before we wrap up Survivor Cagayan? Takes on the season as a whole.
This is going to be a tough season to beat. Like, I know it's ranked 4th according to Rob as a podcast, but like, man, this is a tough season to beat. This is so much fun.
It's either 1 or 2 for me personally. I love it a lot too.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching it the first time. This is one of the few seasons I've actually watched start to end, so it was definitely tricky trying to stay spoiler-free.
You did a good job, Scott. It was
tried my
tough.
best. But yeah, it was fun to kind of talk through it and get to watch it again. So it was good.
Yeah, I was very invested in this final episode, which I wasn't super expecting. So, yeah, I'm really into it.
Awesome.
I think it's helpful to like talk about the gameplay and everything as we go through it. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Totes my goats.
And the Amazon sounds like a fun location for Survivor.
Those Amazonian women. That's a thing, right?
Rare
I
hugs.
mean,
We'll record our season
Rainforest.
finale on site.
Yes, in the Amazon.
let's say we're gonna need some bug nets. So get to our Patreon, and you can. What if we did that? What if we set
Did
up
like a
Patreon,
registry?
and it was like everything in it was like for $30 we'll buy ourselves some bug nets. And
It's like a wedding registry.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for listening. This has been an extreme joy. What a great season. What a great show. Thanks again to my co-hosts for joining me. Thanks to our special guests for being here. Thanks to Mark Burnett, Jeff Probst, and Tony Vlachos for all that you do. And
Who are
next
surely
time, yeah, you're all listening. Next time on Outwatch, TBD. We'll see you next time.